Chapter 9. Orders from clean hands. The command map was too clean. Canvas table. Brass weights. Inked roads. Blue thread for water. Red pins for enemy movement. Green pins for van mark patrols. A neat black line where the old pass road left the broken woods and crossed open pasture. Toward the ridge. On the map, the open ground looked like a place. In Bram's head, it looked like dying. He had seen the pasture that afternoon from the edge of the broken woods. Not close. Close would have meant standing where a scout with a clean sightline could count his ribs. But close enough. The grass lay low and silver under rain. No trees thick enough to matter, no ditch deep enough to crawl, no old stone wall, no cart track cut, no generous curve of water throwing spray into a caster's eyes. The ground rose so gently that anyone standing on the ridge could watch a man cross it and choose when to end him. Officers liked places like this on maps. Nothing hid. That was also why Bram hated it. He had walked the camp perimeter until Joran caught up with him carrying a bundle of revised supply tags and too much worry for one face.
If you're planning to flee,
Joran had said beside him,
try not to take the northern road. It is currently full of mule carts and organizational despair.
I'm not fleeing.
Good. I dislike updating rosters.
Dane had joined them by the water barrels, wristbound under his coat. Jaw set in the way that meant pain had become boring and therefore more dangerous.
They're calling it a push. Push sounds friendly, like moving a cart.
Carts have wheels.
Exactly. We should demand wheels.
None of them laughed long. The command tent glowed ahead of them with lamp oil and importance. Men went in wet and came out carrying decisions that would make other men wetter, colder, or dead. Brahmat stood outside it with the taste of the occupied hamlet still in his mouth. Rationed firewood, numbered trees, names held pending review. He did not want the ridge left to the realm. That was the part that made his anger hard to use.
The forward action proves a small unit can close on a caster if pressure is coordinated.
He stood at the far side of the table with two staff officers and Captain Oren. Oren's shoulder coat was still wet from morning rain. He had not taken off his gloves. Bram did not know if that meant he expected to leave fast or did not want anyone to see his hands shake from exhaustion.
It proves we could at the ford.
Archer's gaze shifted to him as if a pack had spoken.
Explain.
Bram stepped closer to the map. The brass weight near the blue thread had a lion stamped on it. He wanted to move it. He did not.
Water broke the line. Spray hid me for a breath. Saren and Kale caught narrow spells. Elira had the archer. The stones made the caster stand close enough to reach. His wand had a bad knot under the wrap.
You could see that under fire?
One staff officer asked.
I could see it when I was close.
Which you became by advancing.
Bram looked at the black line across the open pasture.
The ford let me.
Harker tapped the map.
The ridge approach is shorter than the ford crossing.
It's cleaner.
Yes, cleaner.
That's worse.
The silence in the tent was immediate. Dane, waiting near the entrance with his bound wrist against his ribs, looked at the canvas roof. Joran stared at the floorboards, as if supplies might be hidden there. Kale's mouth tightened, but he did not speak. Saren stood beside Elira near the tent pole, both of them still as drawn blades.
Use plain words, Alder.
Clean ground gives a caster everything. Sight, space, time to breathe. No spray, no brush. Nothing to make him move his feet except us dying toward him.
Harker's expression did not change. That was worse than anger.
The enemy has been falling back from the forward line. If we do not press, They fortify the ridge. If they fortify the ridge, they hold the pass road. If they hold the pass road, the villages behind us lose supply before winter.
The villages behind us. Bram looked at the map again. Behind the green pins were names he did not know. Roads he had never walked. Chimneys that would smoke or not smoke depending on decisions made on a table too clean to show mud. Harker touched one of those village names with the back of a nail.
Keln Whitebrook, Marden's Fold, 200 households between them and the lower road. Their stores are already thin after the West Bridge washed out. If the realm takes this ridge, we do not merely lose ground, we lose weeks.
He was not bluffing. Bram could hear it. That made the argument worse. If Harker had been a fool, Bram could have set his warning against foolishness. If he had been cruel, Bram could have hated him cleanly. But the lieutenant knew the cost on the map. He simply trusted the parts of the world his training had taught him to count. Roads, households, pace counts, blade screens. Not spray, not breath. Not the way a boy's shoulder rose before fear made him visible.
I'm not saying don't go.
You're saying the advance cannot succeed.
I'm saying don't call the ford proof for this ground.
Then what is it?
Bram swallowed the first answer. It had too many teeth.
A thing that happened when all the bad ground was on our side for once.
One of the staff officers gave a quiet, disapproving breath. Saren's voice cut through it.
He is correct about the difference in spell lanes.
Harker looked at her.
Valakor, your assessment?
She took one step toward the map. Not toward Bram. Toward the truth, which was more irritating. It meant she would have done it whether he was there or not.
At the ford, the caster's line narrowed. The water forced shape. A sword could answer what the spell became. In the open, a skilled caster can choose broader pressure.
And swords cannot answer that.
Saren's jaw tightened.
Not all of it.
That admission cost her. Bram saw it in the way Kale glanced at her and then away, as if looking too long would be rude. Elira had said nothing. Harker leaned over the map.
We do not have the luxury of ideal terrain. We have retreating enemies, wounded roads, and a ridge that cannot be left to them.
Oren stared at the black line.
What support can you give the advance?
Forward blade screen. 2 blessed casters from the chapel detachment. Archers in staggered pairs. Alder's detail held until a breach opens.
Held?
Harker's eyes returned to him.
You cannot close without conditions. You have made that clear. When conditions are created, you will act.
Created how?
One of the staff officers, a narrow-faced man with ink under his thumbnail, answered. Before Harker could.
Blade pressure, smoke pots if wind permits, archer suppression, prayer cover from the chapel pair.
If wind permits.
Bram repeated.
Wind is a known uncertainty.
So is a caster choosing not to make the spell narrow.
The staff officer's mouth thinned.
Which is why Valakort and the other forward blades are assigned.
Saren did not move, but something tightened at the base of her jaw. Bram looked at her hand. The burn from the ford still sat under the wrapping. A good sword could catch a line. A good sword hand could burn doing it. The map had no mark for that. Elira finally spoke.
What is Letharian's confirmed range?
The tent shifted around the name. Not fear exactly, recognition. Harker glanced at a page.
Reports vary.
Use the longest.
140 paces for narrow work. Less for broad pressure.
Open ground from tree lime to first ridge stone?
The ink-fingered officer said.
112.
No one liked the answer once it existed aloud. Elira nodded once, as if she had asked the question only to give the silence a shape. Bram looked at the black line again. They would be inside reach before the field gave them anything. It sounded like he had listened. That was what made Bram cold. He had listened the way a man listened to a saw, and heard only noise, not the grain beneath it.
Naming conditions doesn't make them appear.
Neither does victory.
Oren's gloved hand came down on the table, not hard, but enough to stop the next words.
Orders stand. Ridge approach at dawn. Harker. Adjust the blade screen for wider spell pressure. Valacord. Rusk. Voss. Thorn. You hold the first line as long as steel can matter. Alder, you stay with Thorn until a breach is real.
Alira's face did not change. Bram hated that. He hated that she was disciplined enough not to show fear where officers could use it. Hated that Oren had set her name like a resource. Hated that he understood why. The staff officers began moving pins. One red pin shifted to the open pasture, then another. Bram looked at the space between them and the green line. No trees, no broken bank, no water spray, no door. Harker said something about pace counts. Oren answered. Kael asked where the reserve would stand. Saren spoke of blade angles and spell width. Good questions. Real work. No one here was stupid. That did not make the black line safer. Marith, who had been silent near the rear pole, stepped close enough to study the pins.
If broad pressure comes first, the forward blades cannot hold a pretty line. They must break and reform by pairs.
Harker frowned.
Breaking line risks gaps.
Holding line to broad pressure makes corpses in orderly rows.
The tent went still again. Bram had not heard Marith speak much. Her voice had no decoration in it. It made even officers look down at the map as if the canvas might prefer honesty. Oren rubbed one gloved thumb over the table edge.
Adjust it.
The ink-fingered officer moved 2 green pins a finger width apart. So small, Bram thought. A life became a finger width if a man stood far enough from it. When the meeting ended, Bram stepped out into air that smelled of wet canvas, horse sweat, and distant cook smoke. Alira came beside him.
You spoke well enough.
Didn't work.
Often those are separate things.
He looked back at the command tent. Through the canvas wall, shadows moved over the map, bending and straightening like trees in wind.
They took the part they liked.
Alira's eyes stayed on the darkening ridge.
Armies do that with people too.
The words stayed with him through the rest of the day. They took the part they liked from everything. From the ford, they took broken focus, not spray door, sword strain, burned gloves, Alira's timing, the dead man's hand tangled in bowstring. From Bram, they took axe intervention, not bruised ribs, mud panic, not the waiting Alira had made him hate and need. From Seren, they took blade screen reliability, not the way her hand had trembled when Joran wrapped the burn. The army liked pieces that could be written into orders. People were inconvenient. They kept the rest attached. By evening, the camp had already begun making the ford into a story with the difficult parts scraped off. A cook called Bram Mage Splitter when passing him stew. 2 recruits asked whether the axe had bitten through spellwood as easily as pine. Dane told them it had also made breakfast, mended boots, and offered wise counsel on romance, which confused them long enough for Bram to escape. The story grew legs faster than a frightened deer. By the waterline, someone said Bram had thrown the axe across the ford and pinned the caster to a tree. At the Fletcher sawing, another claimed Alira had taught him an elf trick for smelling magic in wood. Near the chapel, a blessed recruit asked whether Bram had felt the divine move through the axe at the moment the wand cracked.
No, it does not.
The recruit waited, disappointed by the lack of mystery.
I felt mud in my boot and terror in my teeth.
He left, before the boy could decide whether that was metaphor. The lies were not all cruel. That was the difficulty. Stime needed the ford to become a story so Dawn could make them brave enough to stand up. Some wanted Bram larger. If he was larger, perhaps the open ground would be smaller. He understood that and resented it at the same time. Every exaggerated spray became courage. Saren's burned hand became noble grace. Alara's timing became elf instinct. His own fear became destiny. Destiny. Bram was beginning to think, was what people called work after they had stopped wanting to see the hands. Saren stood by the blade racks, rewrapping her burned palm.
They're saying it was easy.
She did not look up.
Then they were not there.
Does that help?
No, it does not.
She tied the bandage with her teeth, pulled it tight, and flexed her fingers once. Pain crossed her face and vanished under training.
If they think it was easy, they will ask for it again.
Yes, they will.
You don't sound worried.
This time she looked at him.
I sound trained.
That was not the same thing. He knew it now. Kale came from the tent line with 2 freshly issued shield straps over one shoulder.
Harker has doubled forward blade assignments.
Saren's expression sharpened.
The ford?
The report.
The 3 of them stood in the gray between cook smoke and rain, each holding a different piece of the same bad answer. Bram looked toward the command tent again. Inside, the map would still be clean. No one slept well before dawn. The camp tried. Blankets rose and fell. Banked fires glowed low. Boots waited in rows beside bedrolls. Wet boots were misery, and missing boots were death. Somewhere near the mule line, Dane muttered threats at his own wrist in his sleep. Bram sat on a stone above the march road and sharpened his axe by touch. The moon had gone behind cloud. The blade took shape under the whetstone in small, familiar whispers. Edge. Bite. Here, the same work sounded different. He had tried to write home before climbing to the stone. The paper sat folded inside his coat. Blank, except for Dear Mira and a dark spot where rain or his hand had smudged the ink. He had not known what to put after her name. I am alive sounded like asking her to be grateful for too little. I have done useful things sounded like the army had taught him to boast. I met someone who knows Trees' history would make Mira ask questions he could not answer without giving Alara away. So the paper stayed unfinished. Home felt too far to reach honestly and too close to lie to. He had tried 3 other beginnings and scraped them out with the knife edge. Do not worry was an insult to anyone with sense. I am learning sounded too small for the things he had seen. There was an elf here who knows how to make me less stupid had nearly stayed until he imagined Mira reading it aloud to Tobin. And Tobin turning Alira into some story witch with silver eyes and a tragic cloak. Alira would hate that. Bram would hate it too. Though for different reasons. The last attempt had been only I still have the axe. That one he had not scraped out. He had folded the paper before deciding whether it was comfort or confession.
You will take too much off if you keep grinding at fear.
Bram did not look up.
You always arrive when I'm doing something wrong.
Alara sat on the other end of the stone, leaving a respectful gap between them.
You're often doing something wrong.
That your old-fashioned elf wisdom.
That is fresh observation.
He huffed once. The sound came close enough to laughter to hurt. She rested her sword across her knees and began checking the binding near the guard. Her hands moved with the same care Bram gave the axe. No. Show. No ceremony. Just the knowledge that things failed when people assumed they would not. For a while they worked beside each other. Below them, the road curved through dark grass toward the pasture they would cross at dawn. In night, it looked softer. Night was a liar. Bram could already see the open stretch in his head, every pace without cover, every place a caster could stand and breathe. The camp below them prepared in little sounds. A buckle tested twice. A kettle lid set down too carefully. Someone vomiting. Behind a wagon and insisting afterward that it was bad stew. A chaplain's low prayer moving along the tent rows, offering protection to men who would still need shields, boots, luck, and someone beside them not to run. Dane emerged from the barracks once, cloak crooked, wrist bound against his chest. He stood in the yard looking up at the dark like he had misplaced the moon. Joran came after him, said something Bram could not hear, and guided him back inside by the good elbow. Kale crossed the yard alone with his sword in one hand and a rag in the other. At the practice post, he stopped and ran through one form in the dark. Not full speed, not for display. Point, turn, draw. Ground. Bram recognized the fourth step now. It did not pull left. Saren stood near the blade racks watching the pasture rather than her own hand. Her bandage was white in the dark. Everyone was awake in pieces. The army would call that readiness by dawn.
Tell me I'm wrong.
Alara kept working on the binding.
No, it is not.
That's a poor comfort.
You didn't ask for comfort.
I sort of did.
Then no.
This time the laugh escaped, small and tired. Alara opened her mouth, as if to add one more dry correction. Then let the quiet come back. Bram set the whetstone down. His left side still ached from the ford spell. The bruise had spread in a purple band under the ribs. He had not told anyone how deep it felt when he breathed. Alara knew anyway. She had known since the first time he shifted wrong at supper.
At the fort, you waited until the field made a door.
You told me to.
Tomorrow, there may be none.
The words should have made him angry. They only made him colder.
So what do I do?
Stay where your death helps no one.
That sounds like hiding.
Most living things call it surviving.
And if someone else dies while I stay?
Alara's hand stopped on the binding. There it was. The question under every order, every drill, every clean map. If he moved, he might die stupid. If he stayed, someone else might die where his axe could have mattered. The army wanted rules for it. Bram wanted a tree to read, grain to follow, a sound in the wood that told him when the fall had begun. Alara did not answer quickly.
Then you carry that too.
That's not fair.
No, not in the way you mean.
You say that a lot.
You keep finding true things.
He looked down at his hands. The whetstone had left gray dust along the pads of his fingers.
How do you know which ones to carry?
You don't always know. You choose with the ground you have, not the ground you deserved.
That sounds like something from a white tree.
It is something from a battlefield.
The road below them stayed dark. Bram wanted to argue. He wanted her to give him a trick. A sign. A neat correction that would keep every shoulder down and every living person breathing. She gave him the truth instead and let him dislike it beside her. He looked at her then. In the low light, her face was all clean lines and shadow. Younger than she seemed sometimes. Older than anyone in camp when she went quiet.
Your grove, the white trees.
Her hand paused on the sword binding.
What about it?
Did you fight there?
The question sat wrong as soon as it left him. Too large. Too blunt. Too hungry for what she had not offered. Alira looked down the road.
No, they were not.
Bram waited. Waiting was sometimes the only tool that fit.
My father did, badly if the realm records are to be believed.
Were they?
No, they were not.
No hesitation, no heat either.
He was a teacher. He had one kitchen knife and a village that thought laws would remain words. Soldiers don't write that kind of failure kindly.
What did he teach?
Names, law, old songs, which fruits not to eat before a long walk.
Important.
Very. My brother ignored the fruit lesson and suffered with dramatic dedication.
The memory almost warmed her voice. Almost.
My father believed if people understood words, they would not let rulers steal them so easily.
Bram thought of the Hamlet notice. Local naming rights suspended pending review. Thought of household numbers where children's names should have been.
Was he right?
Alira looked at the pasture.
No, not fast enough.
Bram's hand closed around the axe haft.
I'm sorry.
Don't be sorry during a fight.
We're not in a fight.
She looked at the road again.
We are close enough.
The same words from the lean-to, almost. Not. Quite. The first time they had sounded like a wall. Now they sounded like a door she had opened just enough for him to see fire beyond it. Bram swallowed hard.
What were their names?
Alira's fingers tightened on her sword. He almost took it back. Then she said,
My father was Sale. My mother was Nifara. My brother was Tollan, and he hated every dignified song ever written.
Bram looked at her.
He sang badly?
He sang accurately, loudly, and with malice.
The image came so suddenly that Bram smiled before remembering he had no right to. Alira saw it and did not punish him.
Tobin does that. He changes harvest songs so everyone in them trips over a pig.
A serious artist.
Very. He bit a priest once.
Then perhaps too serious.
The road below stayed dark. The pasture stayed open. The dawn waited. But for a few breaths, there were brothers making songs worse on purpose, and a world large enough to have held both of them. Bram wondered if this was what grief did when it was not cutting. It placed two ridiculous brothers on the same road for a moment. Though they had never met, and one was far away and one was dead. It made a space where laughter could stand without fixing anything. He wanted to tell her about Tobin's face when he lied, about Mira's way of knowing. Before the lie finished, about Wren's cough, about how the first snow made every roof in Alderfall look gentler than it was. He wanted all of it out suddenly, as if speaking home might keep the road from swallowing him whole at dawn. He said only,
If I finish the letter, what should I write?
Alira considered that with more seriousness than he expected.
Something she can hold without cutting herself on it.
That's not specific.
Specific would be dishonest. I don't know Mira.
She'd like you.
Alira looked at him. The words had come out too easily, too plainly. Bram felt heat crawl up his neck.
She likes practical people.
Then perhaps.
Neither of them looked away quickly enough. Alira shifted closer by half the width of a hand.
One correction.
Bram groaned.
Now?
Yes, especially now.
She reached across the gap and tapped his right shoulder.
When fear comes, this rises. When it rises, your swing tells the truth before you do. Tomorrow, if you must move, let the fear go down your legs instead. Into the ground, not into the shoulder.
Bram rolled the shoulder once, felt the old habit, felt her touch leave a ghost where the muscle wanted to betray him.
Down my legs.
Like roots.
You do talk like that.
Yes, I do.
It's not bad.
Alira looked away first. The words Bram wanted gathered behind his teeth. Not all at once. Not a speech. Just a question, maybe. Whether she thought people could have more than one home. Whether she had meant it when she said he was not wrong with the axe. Whether fear ever stopped feeling like a thing trying to climb out through the throat. The morning horn blew. It split the camp open, blankets kicked away, men cursed, steel scraped, orders ran downhill ahead of light. Elira stood, sword already in hand. Bram stood with his axe. The question remained where it was, unasked. Dawn had orders and did not care what boys were finally ready to say. Dawn formation made everyone honest in different ways. Dane talked too much.
If I die,
He said, adjusting the strap across his bound wrist.
tell my mother I said something profound.
Say something profound first.
That's the challenge.
Cale checked his sword belt 3 times and looked angrier each time it sat correctly. Saren stood near the blade line with her burned hand wrapped under a glove, face pale in the gray light. Mareth spoke quietly with Elira. Both of them turned half toward the open ground, as if listening to a threat no one else could hear yet. Bram had slept less than an hour. The unfinished letter to Mira pressed against his chest under his coat. Every time he breathed, the paper shifted. Dear Mira. Nothing after. A whole home balanced on 2 words. He had added 1 line before the horn. I still have the axe. It looked foolish on the page. Too small. Too proud. Too much like all the things he had refused to become and all the things he could not stop being. He had left it anyway. If the letter reached her, Mira would understand at least part of it. If it did not, the paper would still know he had tried to send something true out of the camp. Before dawn took him, around him the squad prepared in the gray. Joran counted messenger straps, then counted them again. His hands needed math. Dane tightened the binding around his wrist with his teeth and pretended the pain was an argument he was winning. Cale buckled and unbuckled the same strap, until Saren said his name once, softly, and he stopped. Mareth checked the forward blade line. She touched no one unless something was wrong. When she touched a recruit's elbow, the man went pale and shifted his stance. Before she spoke, Elira watched the open ground, not the officers, not the map runners. The ground. Bram trusted that more than any speech. Oren walked the line before the advance. He stopped near Bram. His eyes went once to the axe, once to Bram's face, and then to the open pasture beyond the low ridge.
Stay with Thorn until a breach is called.
If there isn't one,
Oren's mouth tightened.
Then you stay.
and if staying gets people killed,
Moving wrong will do it faster.
Bram looked past him. Harker was speaking to the forward officers. One hand cutting clean lines through the air. Clean. Always clean. Oren lowered his voice.
I heard your warning.
hearing isn't changing.
No, it is not.
Then why tell me?
For a moment, Oren looked too tired for command.
If this goes badly, I do not want you thinking no one knew.
That was a terrible gift. Oren moved on before Bram could throw it back. Bram watched him stop at Dane, then Joran, then Cale. Oren did not give speeches. He checked straps, looked at boots, asked one man whether his helmet always sat that badly or only on days he hoped to be killed through the forehead. The man fixed it with shaking fingers. Practical care, Bram thought, could look almost cruel if a person was tired enough. Harker rode past the line on a dark horse, clean cloak fastened high, face set toward the ridge. He looked like command was a weight he had agreed to carry and would not forgive anyone for making heavier. Bram did not like him. He did not think Harker wanted them dead. That left nowhere easy for the anger to stand. Alira came to stand beside him.
Your shoulder is already rising.
Battle hasn't started.
Fear is punctual.
He forced it down. She looked at his hands.
Good. Keep it down.
The word was small. He held it anyway. Saren passed on her way to the blade screen. She paused, just long enough to look at Bram and Alira together.
If a breach comes, wait until I call the line narrow.
You think I'll run early?
I think you're 15, angry and carrying an axe.
Dane, behind them, muttered.
Harsh, but organized.
Bram wanted to snap back. Instead, he nodded once. Saren gave him one sharp look, as if recalculating him, then went on. Kale lingered half a step behind her.
Alder.
Bram looked at him. Kale's face had the closed look at war when too many things mattered.
If Valacord calls narrow, she means 1 breath before the line changes, not 2.
I know.
You don't, not yet.
Kale's gaze flicked to the pasture.
So know it now.
It was not kindness, exactly. It was better than that. It was useful. Bram nodded.
1 breath.
Kale seemed dissatisfied with the gratitude he had not asked for, and went after Saren. Dane leaned close.
If anyone gives me important timing advice, I will forget it immediately.
Jorn adjusted the strap across Dane's shoulder.
Your advice is don't fall over.
Too complex.
Then don't fall.
Manageable.
The jokes were thin. They still held. The horn sounded from the left. The rower throve decisions pretending to be won, boots lifting, straps creaking, prayers whispered, jokes dying unfinished. Bram stepped forward with the rest and felt the pasture open ahead of him. The first steps were always the strangest, he thought. Nothing had happened yet, so the body tried to believe nothing would. Grass brushed his boots. Cold air moved under his collar. Somewhere to the rear, a mule complained, as if this were a normal morning and everyone had forgotten feed. Then, the ridge came into fuller view, dark stone, low scrub, pale gaps where rain had washed soil from the slope, places a person could stand and not be seen. Until the spell came, Bram's shoulder wanted to climb. Down my legs, he thought. Like roots. The fear went nowhere so clean. It went into his knees, his jaw, his grip, the paper against his chest. But the shoulder stayed lower than it wanted. Alira saw. Of course she saw. Alira walked at his side for the first 7 paces. On the 8th, formation pulled her toward the blade screen. She did not look back. She only touched her shoulder with 2 fingers. The signal now so familiar it hurt. Down. Bram drove the fear into his legs and followed the army into open ground.